Welcome to the Know Your Legacy podcast. I'm your host, Vipul Basanya, and today's guest is Garrain Jones. Garrain is a transformational coach and speaker who's inspiring millions worldwide with his story, but he didn't start that way. Well, he definitely didn't start that way. From hitting rock bottom, reaching all the way to the heights of success, his story has taken him from seeing some of the worst things in the world, from being in some of the worst places and conditions, yet he's able to grasp and reflect on the journey and share that wisdom with us, which is now going to be in a book called change your mindset, change your life. And I think that the world is looking forward to reading a book of that nature. So Garrain, thank you so much for being here to share your story.
And thank you so much for having me, brother. I'm always in the greatest appreciation for people who create a platform for people like me to share my story. So thank you so much.
I'm just humbled that you're here, because I know you've got an amazing story and you've got the courage to actually share it, because as we were just saying off air, like, everyone has a story, but it takes a lot of time and effort to reflect on the wisdom you've learned along the way. A lot of that comes out from hardship, and then have the courage to share it and be vulnerable. Like, that's what you've been able to do by sharing your story. So there's one question that I want to ask, and I think this would be a good place to start, is you say that, and this is now a reflection of the fact that you've taken the time to think about your journey, is you don't go through life, you grow through life. And when I heard that, it's so simple but profound. I just want you to expand on that, bro.
Well, a lot of times people, they'll share, I'm going through life from a place of like the victim mentality. It's like, I'm going through this, you don't understand, I'm going through this, but they don't realize that anything that you're going through is a seed that's part of a much larger picture. And if you're not even focused on the larger picture, then it's just you in this small little shell, like, I'm going through this, oh, poor, pitiful me. However, if you have a vision for your life and a vision for yourself, and you know what you're up to in the world, and you know what you're going towards, now it becomes a different story, because when you say you're growing through, then you'll realize that you're in a process. And the process is only there to shape you and mold you to create a stronger version of you so that you can actually sustain at the next level. There's a reason why they don't put first graders in fifth grade, because you must grow through the process to signify that you comprehend that level, pass the test at the end of the year, go to the next level. So it's an entire process that people are growing through. It's the same thing in school, same thing in video games. If you've never run a marathon before, and I'm a coach, and you're like, Garrain, can you train me for a marathon? I'm like, all right, cool. I'm not going to give you these easy workouts from here to the kitchen so that you can do the work. Like, I'm going to literally, am I allowed to curse on you?
Yeah, you can, yeah.
I'm going to bust your ass. I'm going to give you this workout, but it's going to prepare you so that you can, like, cross across that finish line, and depending on the kind of goal that you want. So I'm going to give you goals that match who you get to grow into, so that you can be strong enough, so that when you cross that 26.2 miles, you'll know, wow, like, I've grown so much. So it's all process. And so that's what I mean. It's like, you're not going through anything from the victim state. You're powerfully growing through it. And all I need you to do is keep moving forward.
Yeah, so it just comes back to the mindset, like understanding that you need to graduate to the next level mentally to be able to experience and make the most of the next level, whatever character you need to be to actually enjoy that level and face it. So you mentioned, like, you going through the process. Where did the process start for you? Like, what was the first milestone in your head you think, like, this is where it began for me?
Well, the thing about it, it began when I was a little kid. I just wasn't aware. And most people will go to their grave not being aware. And you can't change what you're not aware of. You also can't be what you can't see. So I wasn't aware that this whole entire time was an entire process to prepare me for life. School was preparing you for life. All these different things were preparing you for life if you know what to look at. So I would say in 2013, that's when I started reading a lot more books. You know, Think and Grow Rich with Peace of Mind, The Power by Rhonda Byrnes, and just a lot of books. You know, Seven Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. And when I started listening to those kind of books, and they were all talking about the process, and just by hearing that, it helped me to be aware and connect the dots going backwards on my life, and on the heels of everything, every major thing that I felt like was a major struggle. It was always something that was birthed out of that. And then there's always lessons that was inside of that. And there was so many different things that happened, but I'd say the most significant one is when I went to prison for 2.5 years. I got busted for smuggling drugs back from 2003 to 2005. I was in a French prison, and I didn't know what I was in. All I know is while I was in there, I said, I'm gonna do stuff in here that I wouldn't normally do out there. So I started reading books. I read over 275 books. I learned how to speak fluent French. I learned Braille. I started memorizing my dreams. I stopped using my right hand, which is my dominant hand, and I use my left hand, which operates a different part of my brain, which I didn't know that, and also teaches you how to adapt. Most people forget how to adapt because they're programmed from when they're 1 through 7, and then they just operate off the same programming and live their life as an adult based off of seven agreements that you made when you were 7 years old. So by me doing all of these new things, I was flexing the muscle of adaptation. So when it came time for me to let go and sacrifice and try on new things, it was easy because I had already learned how to write just as good with my left hand as my right. I was exercising different parts of my brain. I got back to singing and dancing and drawing and doing all these different things. Now, I didn't know what was happening. All I know is I was serving a 12-year sentence. Then I got back to doing everything that I loved. Then I listened to it was Anthony Robbins in this movie, and then he goes, you know, they can take everything away from me. They can't take away my mind. As long as I'm doing everything that I love, then I'll be free. And then in that moment, a whole entire awareness just brushed over me. I'm like, wait a second. That's why I feel so good. Because I'm doing everything that I used to love to do when I was a child. So just inside of that helped me to be aware. When I was out, I felt like I was far away from where I'm supposed to be, like I was in prison, to the point where I manifested being far away from where I was supposed to be, and I was in prison. And while I was in prison, I realized that I was actually free, to the point where I manifested getting out freaking 10 years before I was supposed to get out. And so when I got out, I was like, oh, wait a second, I just went through something. And then as I started reading more books, I realized that was a process. And most people, they would say, oh, you know, I went to prison. Oh, man, you don't understand. It's hard. Oh, man, it's hard. Here's what I learned from prison. I learned to speak fluent French. I learned how to adapt. I learned to memorize my dreams. I stopped using my right hand, started using my left hand. I started drawing again. I started dancing. I started singing. I started focusing out and only focusing on drawing for people and not asking anything in return. I remembered who I was. So in losing myself, I found myself. And in the silence of the night, that's when I discovered everything that I lost had been inside of me this entire time. So the process is only the process that helps you to understand what you already have. And that's your potential power.
You make it sound better than school. Prison. You learned so many things there. Like, but who told you to do that? Like, was there a voice in your head? Like, what? Obviously, because as you're going into prison, you're thinking, "Oh, not my life's over," but it's like, how did I
No,
end up
I
here?
was saying my life is over.
Oh, right. Okay, fine. So you were saying your life is over. So then, where does the transition happen from my life is over to I'm gonna study?
So when you're in prison, all you have is time. The thing that most people suffer from is distractions. You know, being distracted by women, being distracted by men, being distracted by your job, social media, scrolling, all these different things. When I went in prison, I didn't have access to all of that. All I had was time. So when all you have is time, you got to figure out something. You got to figure out a way. Like, you just like sit there and watch the clock. It will take an hour for 1 minute to go by if you're watching the clock. So I'm in there for an entire month, and it seemed like it was 5 years because I wasn't doing anything with that time. So when I was in there, I was like, you know, what can I do in here that I wouldn't normally do out there? That is when I started doing all those things. All I was trying to do is fill up the time to keep my mind off of being in prison. So I was reading books and doing all these, using my left hand and doing all these different things. I didn't know what I was doing to myself. So at that time, I was just reading all these personal development books, Agatha Christie books, Bible cover to cover, Quran cover to cover. I was just trying to fill my mind with knowledge and information, you know, learning how to speak fluent French and doing all these different things. It wasn't until 2011 that I went to my first personal development seminar that I was able to connect the dots of what I'd done when I was in prison.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you were doing it already subconsciously without even
Yeah,
realizing.
so I was doing it already subconsciously. So I had already built new neural pathways in which they were already habits. So I got all these crazy results in my life, but I didn't know how to articulate what happened. People were like, well, how did you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I just love people, or I just do this and I just do that. And then they would try to do what I do. They're like, well, why am I not getting a result like you? I'm doing everything that you're doing. Yeah, but what I couldn't articulate back then is I'm actually being authentic to my nature, not trying to be a carbon copy of someone else.
Yeah, so that's interesting you say that and you bring that point up. So this is what I mean. Like, there's so many people who do that. You know, they follow the success principles or they follow what's being taught at the seminar, but not everyone gets the same result. And that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, is because you've worked with many people as well, and you know, you've done it in your own life. Is what's the difference between someone like you who's done it and gone to jail, and you know, you were involved with drugs and so many other things, and yet you were still able to accomplish it? What are people missing?
They're missing their ways of being. They're trying to do it in theory. They're just trying something on. I'm actually being the thing. And you can have 10 different teachers teaching the same subject, but for some reason, one of them has higher passing scores. Other ones has a lot of people who are failing. It's not the information. It's the person who's delivering the message. You know what I'm saying? So I can read this, you know, people get a kick out of being smart and having a great memory. So you got people quoting scriptures and doing little Googling quotes, but they're not living the quotes. And that's the difference. You've got to live it. And when you know it, like you know your own name, how it resonates with you, it's because you're in mastery of it. You're in practice of it. I had a conversation with a guy the other day, and he was like, well, you know, how many books have you read? And I told him, I was like, you know, about you know, in total, maybe 300 books in the past 10 years. He was like, well, I've read about 700 books or something in the past year. It was a crazy number. And I said, so how does that look like in your life? And he wasn't doing well. And then I had to break it down for him. I was like, instead of asking me how many books that I read, ask me how many times did I read the same book. You know what I'm saying? Because I was like, you know, I said I read The Power of Positive Thinking. And he goes like, well, I read that book too. And I was like, and you're being negative right now. But you're asking me this question, how many times have you read it? He's like, I read it twice. And I was like, now ask me how many times I read it. 326 times. And Bruce Lee says, fear not the man that practices 1,000 kicks. Fear the man who practices one kick 1,000 times. See, I'm working towards excellence and mastery, and you're working to get it done and to have a great memory so you can sound good around people. And so they can believe in your words. It ain't about words. I got to live it. It's got to make sense. I don't leave a book until I have the results that are coming in my life. That means it's not living inside of my body. So I become the book. And that's the difference between me and a lot of people. I become the book. I'm working towards excellence and mastery. And that's why I do it over and over and over and over and over. You don't become a black belt by practicing one kick. You've got to go at it over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah,
And so that's the difference there.
That's deep. Yeah, I never thought of it in that way. I think you're right in saying that. You know, most people, they read or they consume this information or attend seminars just because they want to look like they're doing something, and they don't do it with the intention of like, I'm going to master this. I'm going to do it 10,000 times. You know, that number's thrown around.
They're not aware. They're just doing what everyone else is doing, and you know, I can't say exactly what they're doing, but from the people that I've come across, they have really great memories and they sound great. However, if your life doesn't resemble the information that's stored in your brain, it's an application issue. It's like you don't apply what you're reading. And you're probably giving people advice based off of advice that you don't take yourself.
So let's break it down for people then. So if you were to, let's say you lost everything right now. So we'll get into your story in a minute, but like, let's roll the tape back. We'll go right back to day one. You lost everything again, but you still had the knowledge you had today. What would you do differently right from the beginning?
What would I do? The thing about it is I wouldn't want to do anything differently, because every single intricate thing during that is what shaped the man that I am today. If I change it differently, it could go horribly in a different way. But I will share what took place. What took place is, you know, most people, when they're not doing well and they don't have any money, they're like, oh man, you don't understand my life, and I'm in debt, and I'm in this. And here's what I was doing. I was on Craigslist every single day, not once every other day. Every day I was on Craigslist looking at the top 15 ways to make money. And I wrote a list of everything that I was good at and everything that I loved. And I looked on my Craigslist and I'm like, boom, okay, that doesn't work. And every single day, what I loved and what I'm good at. And then, you know, I was just signing, I was clapping in audiences. I did 1,000 ways to die and acted as a grown baby who still breastfeeds. I was there for an entire day for them to give me a $35 check. You talk about no humility. Like, I wasn't like, you talk about humility. I was completely humble to work with a freaking bonnet on my head just to get $35. And here's the major thing. I always love fitness. I love helping people. I love just empowering people. I love those things. Yo, I was doing singing telegrams, and I was selling them either on YouTube or I was showing up there at their door. Anything I could to make money. Anything. I would go over to my friend's house and I was like, do you want these CDs or DVDs? Take them to Amoeba, buy, sell, trade. Like, I was like literally doing something. I wasn't sitting on my ass and like, oh my God, this. Like, so I was actually doing something. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was causing something. I also had this movement called gumbo, get up and move your butt operation, where I would work people out for free at Runyon Canyon, at a canyon, and do closed eye meditations and everything. I was doing it for free. I had over 75 personal development videos on YouTube for free. And I was living in my car. I was just doing everything I could. Here's the difference. People are waiting for their big shot instead of doing the thing, starting where you are. Google started in a garage. I started where I was. And I just kept going. And eventually it's like the heavens open up. Like the universe said, yes, he's ready to get paid for what he would do for free. And now every single thing that I do, I was doing for free. I'm just an amplified, evolved version of that. And the universe aligned me with opportunities to earn incredible amounts of income to do what I would do for free. And I've been documenting my journey since I was living in the storage unit, my car, and everything else.
I know you took a picture of the storage unit, like from what I understand back then, and I know you were thinking like, one day this is going to be a story to tell. So take us back.
I didn't even know at that time that it was going to be a story to tell. I felt compelled to document my journey.
So, but then there must be some part of you that knew, like, I have to capture this. Like, this is a beautiful journey. I have to capture this because I'm not always going to be there. Like, did you have that sense of positivity then?
It was a really small voice because I wasn't I wasn't aware. So whenever I was like, something told me to do this. So I just wasn't aware of what that was. And so I just always felt compelled. And I would say, well, it could always be worse. It could always be worse. I remember saying that. And there's just one day, I would say one day, and I wouldn't complete the sentence. It would just be like, one day. But throughout the entire process, I learned patience, resilience, how to love myself. Because when I was in prison, I wrote over 200 letters to people, and only 4 people wrote me back. So I literally had to learn how to love myself because nobody was going to come and save me.
Yeah, it's interesting because you learn something along the way. For every milestone, I guess you pick something up, and we think that it's taking longer than we hope for it to take. But as I like to tell most people from reflecting on my own journey, it's like you can't go by your plan. You're going by God's plan or the universe's plan. Like there is a divine plan in place, and you just have to learn to enjoy the journey along the way. And I'm sure you'd say the same thing now.
Absolutely. 100%. It was connecting the dots, going backwards. It was all designed. Every last bit of it. I know how I got my superhero powers. And, it's like I grew up hearing people say, leave the past in the past. I'm like, man, not if you didn't get the lesson, because you'll be recreating more of the same.
Yeah.
Instead of living into possibility into a whole new future. Like I went back to my past and I was like, damn, this keeps showing up in my life because wherever you go, you still got to take yourself with you. I grew up listening to people say, leave the past in the past. I'm like, not if you didn't get the lesson, because there's treasures in your past. And if you don't get the lesson, life has a way of constantly reminding you of the lesson you get to learn. And if you don't listen, you don't get the lesson, you're going to go to your grave paying the same price thousands of times over for something that you can learn right now that's only designed to make you stronger or cultivate you according to the goals and dreams that you want in life.
Was there a process you followed to learn the lessons that happened in your past, or the lessons that the universe or God wanted you to take away from your past? Because it seems like for you to get to where you are now, you've obviously done something to learn from it and to say, right, I need to do something about this so it doesn't repeat itself. And obviously not everyone is in that place.
So remember I told you I was getting results before I even know, I was just like, wow, I'm lucky. I'm lucky. I'm lucky. So I was doing a lot of things. And it wasn't until I started taking like transformation courses like Landmark and MITT and actually started getting healthy and things that like really work on my mind, body, and soul that it helped me to understand. But I tell you, there was a moment where there was a girl named Tess Hall. In the 7th grade, I hit her in the head with a backpack. Like, we were little kids. Like, you do crazy things when you're little kids. You get bullied and you bully people back. We're in our 30s now, and every time I see her on Facebook, I always say things like, man, I remember I hit her in the head with a backpack. I'm sure she doesn't remember it. I decided to reach out to her. I was like, Tess, I know you don't remember this, but this happened. She didn't respond. I wrote this long, drawn-out message on my public Facebook page doing a public apology and saying, like, kids do the craziest things. And she messaged me like 37 seconds later, said, can you please take that down? I'm in tears right now. I'm like, wait, what? What? People hold on to stuff? And mind you, I'm just stumbling upon this. I didn't know that people held on to the way you last made them feel. Hot air balloon doesn't leave the ground until you release the weight. The weight is called resentment, called not being able to forgive, not apologizing and clearing yourself. So then her bubble comes up. She said 3 things. 1, why did you do that? 2, what about me made you do that? 3, same thing is happening to my children, and I don't know what to tell them. And I was like, oh my God. And in that moment, I knew I was going to make a list. I made a list of 250 names from kindergarten all the way up to the present date of people who I either thought negatively about, said negative things. Either they did something negative to me and I carried resentment towards them. And my sole purpose was to connect with all 250 of them just to clear myself. And I called ex-girlfriends. I called people that I beat up, people who beat me up, person who molested me. I apologized for my part. And inside of that apology, I forgave myself. Nobody told me to do this. It just felt like the right thing to do because of what happened with Tess. Forgave myself, apologized, and then I created a whole new possibility to live into so that my past doesn't recreate ourselves. Because your past is like weeds. And so when you want to create something new and you leave it untended, the weeds will grow back and overtake your garden. So when you create a whole new possibility, a vision for yourself, something to actually live into from when you create the clearing, now you're living in a specific direction and the past can't recreate itself because you've already created a new possibility. So that was huge for me. And I didn't know what I was doing. All I know is it felt right in my soul and I honored it. And every time I did that, good shit started happening in my life. I'm like, where did this random check come from? Wow, this person wants to give me an opportunity. And it was like, I would do this over here and over here. It was almost like you create the space to make room for your blessings. So that was really big for me. Most people won't do that. And so I did that. And from that, I learned how to build powerful relationships. I learned how to have tough conversations because I was developing the muscle by going to them and apologizing for my part without attachment to how they respond, because it wasn't about their freedom. It was about my freedom. So I went unattached to the outcome, but really apologized for my part. That was the biggest thing. And it wasn't until I went to a workshop. I went to like Landmark. It's like a 5-day workshop. And they were doing the same thing in there. And I was like, wait, I know what this is. And I got crazy results from this. So picture a baby going gaga goo goo. When I went to the workshops, they gave me language to be able to articulate a feeling that I'd been operating off of already for 5 years in a row.
Yeah. That's deep, because as you said, it makes room for your blessing. And I think many of us don't think about that because we have so many trapped emotions from when we're not conscious about what we're doing.
Right.
And it just stays there. And we don't think that it's going to affect us in any shape or form. It stays with us in some shape or form, even if we push it to the back of our mind. And it's interesting because I actually went to I quickly just mention it as you're on that point. Like, I don't know if you've heard of Elliot Hulse.
No, but definitely tell me about it when we get off there.
Yeah. Yeah. You're gonna love his work. Yeah. So there's a thing called bioenergetics, and it's quite niche when it comes to like meditation and yoga and stuff. But it's a way for releasing trapped emotions within the body. So you shout, you scream, you cry, you let it all out, and it's the healing of the body, looking at it from the inner, from working the inside out. You know, you're not just sitting there in silence. You're looking at the internal work that needs to be done, and it's really releasing the stress from the body, not just the mind, but from the body, because the mind and the body are one thing. They work together, and so they both need to be in sync. And so when you release the physical stress in the body, the emotions, the tight muscles, the soreness, that's when you create room for new energy to flow.
Yeah.
Throughout the spine, throughout the mind, through your breath. You can take more breath in. Like, it's all.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a deep process, but it's all connected with exactly what you're saying, is releasing the trauma that you've got in your mind, because you're holding that. You're thinking about that kid who bullied you in school. Because I had people that bullied me in school. I may not have thought of them in a long time, but it's buried in there. The 10-year-old me is probably still thinking, why the fuck did he say that? And I hate you. And that voice is deeply suppressed. But when you've removed that, now you've got the space to where else can, like, how much more can I pour into other people? How much more love can I receive? Because I'm not taking up that room. Like, does that make sense?
Absolutely. Listen, you got a 2-car garage. You got 2 cars in that garage. What other car can you put in there? Not one. But when you release that car, when you remove that car, now it makes space for you to put another car in there. Even cell phones, when they go from iPhone 8 to iPhone 10, they want to change the camera. They've got to release the camera, and then they put a new camera there. Our bodies and our minds and our souls, the evolution is all made up of the same design. Like, underneath it all, it's all on the same string.
Yeah. No, definitely. Are there any stories from your past that stand out to you, like that you love to share, or that you don't feel like you get to share enough?
Man, I'm a high-paid storyteller, bro. All I do is tell stories. Listen, I got a vision of me being 115 years old on the porch of life, and all these younger people out there, and I'm just feeding them nuggets. Like, so I'm in preparation for when I'm 115. So all I do is tell stories. Let's see. Man, there's so many stories. If you could, like, narrow it down to any particular topic of a story, because I can pick from about 100, 200 different stories, and they're all just as impactful.
You tell me what feels right to you. What comes to you?
See if I can find a story that I've actually never shared on any interview, radio, TV station, or anything like that. What is one that I've never shared? What's a powerful story? Oh, I got one. It's when you're just completely oblivious to. It's when I first started reading that book called The Power of Positive Thinking. See, I didn't know that there was, before I listened to The Secret and The Power and Magic and all those different things, I didn't know what manifestation was. So I remember a lady named Shannon Davison, she gave me a book on my 18th birthday. And I thought that was crazy because I was a special needs child growing up and I had a learning disability. what would normally take you 4 days to learn would take me 6 months to learn. And so I was diagnosed with delayed learning. So, and still today, it's still a little bit there, but I've found ways to get it inside of my body by continuous repetition and energy and it's like different colors and patterns. That's why I can recognize patterns. So she gives me this book. And I was like, why the hell would somebody give me a book for my birthday? You must not know that I've never read a book. I cheated my way through high school. I never read a book, even all the way through high school. I just cheated. First book she gave me was Power of Positive Thinking. And I thought she was crazy. And then one day, people who used to speak and articulate their words with passion, I would clam up in a shell because I used to talk like this. And so anybody would speak fast with passion, I would just not speak because I couldn't speak like that. So one day I got so pissed off that I was going to read this because it was the only book I had, The Power of Positive Thinking, not for the content that was in there, but just to over-enunciate the words so that I could do something with my mouth because I hated that I talked like this. So I started over-enunciating all of the words like this. Mind you, I didn't know that whatever you put in your mind will be the physical manifest. Whatever's going on in your brain is the physical manifestation of it outside. So I started reading for the first time in my life anything on positivity. So imagine if you got oil and all of a sudden you flush it out with water. So I was flushing everything out with gratitude and grace and positivity and manifestation, but I didn't know what I was reading. I wasn't aware. I keep reading and reading and reading, but I was over enunciating just to change my diction. By the time I was done, when I stopped reading like this and I went to talking like this, I was like, oh my God, my talking was different. I wasn't aware that what I was reading was causing all of these amazing things to happen in my life. I was finding money all kind of places. I was attracting at a high level. Now that I know what attracting was, I stopped cursing. I stopped having sex. What is it called? I was meditating every day because that's what they were talking about in the book. And I didn't know that what I was reading was controlling my right now actions, and my right now actions was controlling these magical results that were coming in my life. It wasn't until I started going to the seminars that they helped me to understand that it's what you feed your mind, and the overflow is what like spills over in your life. So I never shared that story of even how I got the book of Power of Positive Thinking. So my life has been trying to get back to the flow that I was in when I was 18. And I didn't get that till I was 32 years old.
Wow. So that was literally 14 years of learning and growing.
Yeah. And here's the crazy thing. I was like, hell no, I'm not going to college. Those doctors are crazy. They go to school for 14, 15 years before they get the big money. And then guess what happened? I've realized the best lessons I ever got was the school of life. And it was 14 years of lessons, and then the big money came. I'm like, oh, damn. Holy crap.
Yeah, I think that's the thing though. Like most people, they get to a point where like they start. Have you read The Alchemist?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that's the way you've read The Power of Positive Thinking. That's what I've read with The Alchemist, and now I haven't read it 300 times, but I've read it 10 times, and I'm still going because I still learn so many new things from it. And now I've started to train my mind to see everything as good and bad omens, and like down to the people I meet, the things I see, the things I hear, the things I taste, and see in my surroundings. I'm like, how is the universe directing me? Like, what does this mean? Like, everything has a purpose. And so I use it to guide me through life. And I think the more you start to see things more positively, the more it starts to guide you in the right direction because you're asking for signs. And I know you did as well at some point, didn't you?
Oh man, there were so many, but I just wasn't aware. But there was so many signs and things that would happen. It would seem like it was like magical stuff that was happening in a movie. I'm like, wow, man, this crazy thing happened to me today. It's like my friend gets evicted. I mean, we're about to get evicted from our apartment, and my portion of the rent was like $926. Remember that number. $926. All of a sudden, I started feeling sick to my stomach. It's like this ball of heat in my stomach, and I was like, couldn't contain it. So I was going to go to the House of Blues when Snoop Dogg was performing there. This was back in 2002. Went to the House of Blues. I felt even sicker. I was like, oh, I got to go outside. Felt like something is calling me to go outside. Brother, I go outside on the deck where there's at least 70 people out there. Soon as I look outside, there was a chair and a wad of money in the chair.
No.
Nobody.
No way.
As soon as I saw the wad of money, there's this like it was like this pressure that left my stomach. It goes. It was almost like when you qualify for the next level in a
Yeah.
Super Mario Brothers video game or something like that. It goes, and I waited there 5 minutes looking at the money. It was almost like it was only there for me. I go and I pick up this money, and it was $926, the exact amount I needed for rent. I've got hundreds of those stories.
You cannot make that shit up, man. Like, that's so
No, you
crazy.
cannot.
That is
That's
so
ninja
crazy.
shit.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I mean, before we wrap up into the final few questions, because we could be talking for all day, but I know that I don't want to take up the rest of your day because I know you've got tons of stuff to do. So we'll definitely have to come back for a part two. But like, is there any other stories that you'd want to share? Like, let's say these were the final two stories you could share, and that was it. Like, you couldn't share any after that. What would those two be before we go into the final few questions?
The final two stories. I was 13 years old, and I'd been hearing about these older teenagers that was drowning little kids to death in the bayou, in the river that was in our neighborhood. And I never thought anything of it. I'm like, damn, that sucks. Like, stay away from grown-ups. So one day I was playing baseball in the cul-de-sac in a little circle, like a driveway. And then people that I knew who were my cousin's friends, they're like, hey, there's some big trout, big fish in the river. I left the baseball game. My friend Derek said, don't leave. And I left anyways, and I ran there, and it was 3 people. They were like 19 years old. I knew them. They were my cousin's friends. And I'm looking, there's like these little tunnels. And the tunnels, they suck the water in, and you go all the way to the other side. Like, kids have died in there. So literally, they asked me to look. I was like, I don't see any trout. They said, look closer. As soon as they said, look closer, everything in my body said, these are the guys that have been drowning the kids. And they threw me in. They threw me in the tunnel. I got sucked up into a whirlpool, and it twisted me upside down. I'm getting ready to go in the tunnel and be sucked. If I get sucked in the tunnel, I'm dead. And I kept kicking and screaming and fighting, and all of a sudden, I surrendered. Pay attention, listeners and viewers. I surrendered from the kicking and screaming. I surrendered. And right as soon as I was about to get sucked in, a hand grabbed me, pulled me up. And when I looked up, there was no one there.
That's crazy.
There was no one there.
What?
By the way my life is going, I know like it was a divine connection. I know how God flows into my life every time I surrender. Every e- on the heels of everything magical that has happened in my life, it's when I release control, pride, ego, and force, and I just surrendered. And so inside of that, that was a big context for me as I started developing and transforming, connecting the dots, moving backwards. That was on the heels of surrender. If I'd have been kicking and screaming, that hand would not have caught me. So there's one. I never knew who it was because when I looked up, there was nobody there. Another story. So I say the last, let's see if I could tell one more story. I got stories for days, bro. Oh, all right. So I'm dating this girl, and her favorite artist is Britney Spears. I actually never told this story before. This is back in 2001, right after Britney broke up with Justin Timberlake. And she kept talking about Britney Spears. She would dress like her and everything. I was like, man, you're so obsessed and everything. So just remember that story. I'm with a modeling agency, and this is all while I was reading The Power of Positive Thinking, where all these magical things were happening in my life. So I'm with this modeling agency called Wilhelmina. It's a guy, my agent named David Todd. He kept asking me. He was like, "Do you have a girlfriend?" And I did at the time. I was like, "Yeah." And he kept asking me. I was like, "Why do you keep asking me that?" And then he asked me once again the day after me and my girlfriend had broke up. He was like, "Do you have a girlfriend?" I'm like, "Actually, we just broke up." Why? He was like, "Because there's this huge pop star who thinks you are so, like, she thinks you're like, she thinks you're hot and she wants to meet you." I'm like, "Who?" She was like, "I'm gonna set you guys up, and it's gonna be a surprise. You're gonna meet at this place." It was like on a Monday night, this poppin' place that where all the celebrities used to go to. I didn't know, I didn't know who it was at all, and all of a sudden, I'm talking and I'm dancing by myself at this club, and then my friend goes, "Hey, Garrain, this is Brittany. Brittany, this is Garrain." And I'm like, he was talking about Britney Spears? So here I am dancing with Britney Spears. This is like in 2001. Dancing. And the whole club stops. Everything stops. It's like, who's the guy that she's dancing with? We're dancing. I remember the song. Um, um, Baby, you gotta be mine. Da, 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 da. And girl, I give you all I got to give. It was a Michael Jackson song, and we're dancing. And all of a sudden, it was just like, I'm like, what the hell just happened? She leaves, and I tell her one time, I was like, listen, I'm performing at in the hood in Inglewood at this, I'm doing this Temptations, at this, I'm doing a play. She's like, I'll come. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm thinking bullshit. So uh, she ends up leaving, and as she leaves, my girlfriend, who had just like cheated on me, was like, "Oh my God, I'm getting a taste of my own medicine, and I think I'm gonna throw up." The next day, I go to my I go to my play. I go to my play, And I'm just joking around with the guys. I'm like, yeah, man, you know, Britney Spears is coming and everything. Mind you, this is when she's hot, like at the top of the top. Then they came back to me. They came back. It was like, oh, you have a guest, a visitor outside. I opened up the fucking door and it was Britney Spears, bro. Blew my mind. But the thing about it is my girl was so fixed on Britney Spears that I couldn't get her out of my mind. And looking back on my life, it's like whenever you focus on something over and over and over and over and over and over and over, it will show up in your life. So everything that I've ever attracted is because it was continuously, I gave it energy. Energy goes where energy flows. And so it was just crazy how that happened. I've actually never shared that story before. This is the first time.
It's a crazy story, and I
Yeah,
believe
bro.
it, man. That's crazy how that can happen. Like you can't even plan that. Like it just
Nah, you can't.
yeah.
But my whole life was being generated. That was the time when I saw the money and all these different things, and it was on the heels of reading the book, The Power of Positive Thinking, which is why I kept reading it, because my life kept manifesting in a way that was so magical. So
Yeah,
imagine reading it
yeah. I think
328
it,
times.
it's hard to put into words. It's feeling, isn't it? Like you have to feel
Listen,
it. Like that's the difference between
feeling,
people who speak and then people who feel it.
feeling is the secret. It's not the book. It's what I discovered inside of myself. So it might be something for someone else. It might be meditation. It might be Kundalini drums or whatever. Whatever for you. It's like you find the process that allows you to feel in a way where you feel so alive and zestful and full of life, whatever that is. And when you get to that state, which I feel like taps into your higher power, you know, your higher self, that's the one that actually manifests everything.
Yeah. So the books and the videos and the affirmations that everyone does and that we do is it's almost there to switch on the feeling. That's the whole
Yes,
purpose of it. That's the whole. But it's not the words itself. Like the words are empty. It's the feeling that it unlocks.
yes.
I hope that makes sense. That just
No,
clicked with me
listen.
now. Yeah.
I have this thing. It's called "Feeling Is the Secret," and then also Neville Goddard has a audio book on iTunes called "Feeling Is the Secret," and it talks about this whole thing. It's actually the feeling. You know, a house is only a house, but it's not a home until you fill it with a bunch of stuff that actually makes it a home. But it's the feeling that makes it a home. The
Yeah.
essence of it.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So just to get into the final few questions then, I mean, I think you touched on this a little bit before, but just to go into it now, with everything that you now know, is there anything different you tell the 18-year-old Garrain?
Nah, man. It's like, you ever seen a movie Back to the Future?
Yeah.
Remember when he started like tampering with his past and it changed this whole, I don't even want to fuck with that. Like, I don't even want to mess with, oh shit. Bro, I didn't even realize I'm in the exact place. I'm literally parked in the exact place that I was in November 2011. I mean, in August 2011, when I cried out and had my
Oh,
spiritual
no.
awakening. I'm parked.
No way.
I'm literally in the parking lot right now. I didn't even realize that. I just stopped here so I could have good reception. I'm in the exact parking spot right now. Hold on, I'll show you.
Wow.
Check this out. So I'm in this, it's on the corner of La Brea and Hollywood.
Yeah,
It's in
yeah.
this exact, so this is my dream car, Smitty, but it's in this exact spot where I cried out with my car parked this way.
And
I cried out.
wow, and you didn't even plan to park there.
No, I wasn't even thinking about that.
Again, there's a live example of you not being able to play. We can't plan that sort of shit, man.
Nah. I wasn't even thinking about that until you start asking these last two questions. I was like, well, when he's going to ask, I wonder if he was going to ask when I had my moment of awakening. And I just thought about it. I was like, yo, I'm literally in the exact same spot. When I was struggling, you see that couch right there?
Yeah.
That couch, I used to sleep on that couch all day long. Like,
Wow.
when I didn't have a place to live, I used to literally sleep on that couch. I
How-
didn't realize like I was in like my sacred space. This is every time I come here, something magical happens. I forgot like actually where I was. I just knew that there was Wi-Fi here.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you didn't even think about consciously going there, like you just ended up
Nope.
there.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. There's a live example of not being able to plan something. But yeah, so I mean, that's as you said. I think when you're going back to back to the future, like you don't want to change anything because then you may not end up exactly where you are.
Yeah, listen, man. Everything that happened was part of that design. I changed if I'm 1 degree different, I'm not here. I might be a freaking librarian or something like
Yeah,
that. Like, I don't want that. I
yeah.
wanted everything that I grew through to develop me in the way where I can go into different jail cells. I can go into different communities. I can speak with Muslims, Christians, Protestants, Jews, and I can be really connected to all of them, deliver the same message. Like, if I didn't grow through everything I went through, there would be no possible way that I could relate to people the way that I do. So honestly, I wouldn't change one thing. Keep going.
Yeah, of course. You know, I'm exactly the same way. There's not many people that say that, but I honestly feel that way. And it's just like I like the person I'm becoming and the person who I am and the things that I've learned. And so if I was to change any of that, who says I'm going to end up exactly where I am? So the second question, I guess, then from there is, if there's one statement, just one statement that you could write on a piece of paper that you'd put in a time capsule and generations from now would read it, what would you want them to read?
Say that one more time.
If there was one statement that you could write and put it in a time capsule for generations from now to read, what was that one statement be?
The secret to life the secret to life the secret to life is in understanding how nature flows and embodying those principles.
Yes, I love it. There's so many examples of things that I've seen in nature that are like directly in
Yeah, it's the same.
yeah,
It's the same.
yeah. Just
Flowing, it's not forcing.
yeah, exactly. It's as basic as like planting a seed. It has to be thrown in the dirt, in the soil, underground, like in mess, in chaos, and then it blooms, it comes out. And it happens only after nurturing it day after day after day, and it gets all the ingredients it needs. And it's the same with our mind, I guess, you know?
Yep.
So the last and final question then. You're at the end of your life now, 115 years old, 120, whatever it is
I'm going to live to be longer than that. I'm inspired by the characters in the Bible that live to be like 300. So I feel like age doesn't make you old. So
no, it definitely doesn't. So however old you are at the end of your timeline, what's the legacy you want to leave behind?
it's very simple, but very hard to get to. It's to love no matter what. It's a very simple thing. but most people will never do that. And that goes for in everything. To love no matter what.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't want to make that complicated. There's a kind of person that can find love in traffic, find love in resentment, find love in any and all things and all people, has truly found himself, herself.
You know, it's deep, because that's something I've realized this year as well. And I'm still finding it difficult to live it, but I definitely understand it. And it's understanding that we're all one. Like it's the same. When you put out hate to someone else, that's you're just hating yourself, because he is you. He is, like, you're made from the same stuff. So you can't get, I read this in a book somewhere, and he was talking about money. He said, oh, when you get jealous of other people having a lot more money than you, or say that, oh, he's lucky, or this, or whatever it might be, you're creating a distance from yourself and that person. And by you not giving them a blessing, you're basically telling the universe, I don't want a lot of money. That's basically what you're saying. And it doesn't make sense. And that goes for anything, you know, when you don't show people the love that you want to be shown, it just doesn't come back around to you. So it's a bit of a deep one, but I guess it's something that you've definitely learned to master in your life.
It's something that it's a major focus of mine, and I'm constantly releasing and releasing and releasing and releasing. And it's by far, it's how we come into this world and we just forget. So it's like, you got to get the puzzle pieces out of the box first before you can put them back into the box of how it came. Our life is the exact same way.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, man. It's been amazing. What's the best place for people to find out more about you and follow your journey?
Well, of course, my website, which is GarrainJones.com. You can definitely always find me on Instagram, Garrain, at Garrain.Jones, Snapchat, Garrain Jones, Facebook, Garrain Jones, and definitely be looking out for my book, Change Your Mindset, Change Your Life. It is a practical people's guide to understanding the power that lies within you that you may not be aware of, so that you can utilize it and drive incredible results in your life.
Awesome, man. No, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's been amazing, and we definitely need to do this again sometime, man.
You're more than welcome, and thank you again. And send me that information.
I will do. Yeah, I'll do that now.